Up first on Ag Etc., Duane Toews and Jan Archer with the National Pork Board are discussing, you guessed it, pork. Next, Erick DeWolf stresses the importance of controlling your volunteer wheat now before you plant. Next, Kyle Bauer and Thad Lively are talking about the U.S. Meat Export Federation. Next, we'll visit Circle Bar Ranch and hear about their rich history in the cattle business. And we'll end with Dr. Chris Blevins and Dr. Beth Davis talking about treatment of persistent coughing in horses. Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com. This segment brought to you by Kansas Regenerative Medicine. Your stem cells, your health, your life.
Duane Toews joining you once again on AGam in Kansas. And we had the opportunity to catch up with Jan Archer, president of the National Pork Board. And Jan, we think about the world of pork for consumers. No better time than to stop by their grocery case. Tremendous pricing opportunities there to put some quality protein in their freezer.
Boy, isn't that the truth? You know, a couple of years ago, we had some supply issues. We didn't have enough supply to meet the demand, and consequently, prices were really high. And our consumers still were buying our product at that really high price point. And so now we can say thank you. And the thank you is they can buy that same product at a much lower price point. For 2016 to produce more pork than we have ever produced in the history of mankind. So that's going to mean some really great opportunities for consumers.
Jan, you talk about why that happens. Obviously, it is the dedication of our producers in the countryside that have really stepped up after going through a bit of a low period in production due to a number of different reasons. They're at the top of their game right now and producing a quality protein product for the market.
They sure are, and that's the nature of farming. If you give a farmer a target, they're generally going to hit it and very often surpass it, and that's what's happening now. We are producing more pork because we're more efficient in the way that we produce. We're producing more pigs per sow is one of the ways that we measure that. We have a few more sows, but we're also growing pigs to a higher weight. All of that puts a lot of pork on the market, both the domestic market and our international markets as well.
Jan, we talk about the eating experience and consumers having a good eating experience. Unfortunately, for far too long, pork was encouraged to have been overcooked. There was a change from USDA and the folks at FDA. Helped us out a tremendous amount in that regard, but we still need to remind consumers that you don't have to dry it out and overcook it to have a safe product.
Absolutely right. We raise pigs differently right now. We raise pigs in barns in very sanitary conditions, so the pork that we are producing is so healthy and so safe that we don't have to deal with some of the issues that my grandmother had to deal with, for example. So we encourage people to cook pork to 145 degrees internal temperature. And I know people don't always have a thermometer. That's kind of a medium rare with a little pink in the middle. And then that guarantees a juicy, flavorful, consistent product every time.
Ag Promo Source is a unique group of marketing specialists with one mission: help your ag business grow. Each affiliate has their own area of expertise, and they work together to bring you advice, products, and services. To get started, visit agpromosource.com. Ag Promo Source. Together we grow.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Soil is the life of a farm, and for 25 years, SureCrop Liquid Crop Nutrition has helped growers produce abundant quality crops while preserving and improving the soils they steward. SureCrop offers complete soil and plant analysis with cropping recommendations, delivery direct to your on-farm storage, and quality crop nutrition custom blended for your field. Choose SureCrop for the assurance of excellence for your soil. Call today or visit their website for more information.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
Tarwater Farm and Home has been family-owned and operated since its beginning in 1978. What you need for farm and agriculture, lawn and garden, clothing and footwear, and so much more. You'll be surprised at what you'll find in this huge store. They have what you need and lots of it. So come take a look. You'll discover that customer service is first and foremost. Always has been with the Tarwaters. Tarwater Farm and Home, 4107 North Topeka Boulevard. This segment brought to you by Kansas Wheat. Learn more at rediscoverwheat.org.
So wow, what a year we had for wheat streak mosaic this year here in Kansas. And it's during these summer months that we really see the volunteer wheat that's so important for the beginnings of wheat streak mosaic really get established here. So the volunteer wheat in July and August serves as the green bridge for that wheat streak mosaic. The disease that we had last year was a function of some management decisions to leave some volunteer wheat last summer, and then also a product of some unusual environmental conditions or weather conditions in the fall of that year. So when we had enough moisture to get the volunteer up in August, if it went uncontrolled, we had high populations of wheat curl mites, the little mite that spreads the viruses around. And then with the mild fall temperatures that we had, we also saw abundant time for those high populations of mites to move around and get established in our new wheat crop. So as we're concerned about trying to prevent wheat streak mosaic in the future, it's really focusing on this volunteer wheat that's just getting established here in August and early September, just prior to planting, that really becomes critical in us trying to control the wheat streak mosaic and prevent a repeat performance, not only here in Kansas, but throughout the regions. There's lots of options for control of that volunteer wheat. We might begin to look at using herbicides if we want to leave it in a no-till production system, or there's also, of course, tillage options that people could also use, whether it's a sweep plow or other mechanisms that we can use to try and destroy that volunteer wheat. It's important to have at least a 2-week break of time where there's no wheat in the field or in adjacent fields prior to our new wheat crop emerging. Also be aware of the potential for volunteer wheat in some of the double crop areas as well. So volunteer wheat emerging in double crop soybeans that hasn't received either Roundup or glyphosate applications yet can also be a place where the wheat streak mosaic and these pesky curl mites can also survive as well. So as we move into these really critical months in July and August, I think this is really the time when growers need to come together as communities of growers to decide that this is the year that they're going to really put an end to their wheat streak mosaic problems in their communities. And if we all do our part, I think we'll see much lower risk of wheat streak mosaic in the coming years.
KFRM is one of the largest farm radio stations in the nation, dedicated to informing and entertaining rural listeners from northern Oklahoma to southwestern Nebraska. You can catch KFRM in many ways, of course, 550 on the AM dial, streaming at kfrm.com, or on your smartphone by going to the TuneIn Radio app, or on AGam in Kansas on Tuesdays and Facebook every day of the week. KFRM, tune us in. You'll be glad you did.
Grain sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
Earlier in my life, I rode bucking horses in rodeos, and my shoulders took such a beating, and that was probably the reason for having several previous surgeries on both shoulders. About a year ago, I decided that I didn't want to have another surgery, and so I contacted Kansas Regenerative Medicine, took their treatment process. It was relatively pain-free. Now, after 8 months, my shoulders have healed to the point where I think I'm probably 90 to 95% of normal. It takes a couple of months to start to see results and feel real progress. That continued to increase gradually until now at approximately 8 months, and I'm extremely pleased. I've got full range of motion. I can lift weights, I can throw, I can do a lot of things that I couldn't do without a lot of pain previously.
This segment brought to you by Sure Crop, liquid crop nutrition delivered right to your farm.
Hi, this is Kyle Bauer, visiting with Thad Lively. Thad is with the U.S. Meat Export Federation. Let's start, Thad, with who the Livestock Meat Federation is and what do you do?
Well, the U.S. Meat Export Federation represents the export interests of the beef, pork, and lamb industry. So our focus is entirely overseas on exports. Our headquarters is in Denver, but the rest of our operations are outside the U.S. We have 9 sectors in USMEF. That includes everybody from producers to allied industries, processors, et cetera. We've got packers, trading companies. Everybody in the marketing chain for red meat comes together at USMEF.
And so your funding comes from all those different sources?
It does, plus the USDA. USDA is an important source of funding for USMEF, probably accounts for approximately 40% of our funding in a given year, and that has always been true. But we also are big recipients of checkoff funding, beef, pork, but corn and soybeans too.
Well, that's interesting. Corn and soybeans, why would they want to spend their money on exporting meat?
Well, it's a great question, and of course they look to the livestock industry as their biggest customer, and the livestock industry is increasingly looking to exports is the place where they're going to find growth.
Thad, where is that growth happening around the world?
Well, the big growth markets today, the top of the list, of course, would be China. China is the middle class grows and incomes go up. People are eating more meat, whether it's beef or pork. But we have good, solid growth continuing in places like Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, even in the Western Hemisphere. We're growing this year in Mexico, for example. So there are smaller markets here and there that are also good growth markets. We've got some solid performance now in some of the Central American countries, South America, even Southeast Asia, Indonesia. Our exports of beef to Indonesia are up 4-fold over last year. So continue to be an awful lot of opportunities out in the world.
China is a major importer of beef, but not from us.
No, that's right. We have been out of the China market since December 2003 when we had our first BSE case. A lot of work has been done to try to change that and get back into the market. We had an encouraging sign earlier this fall when the Chinese government announced that it was going to drop its ban on U.S. beef. Now what's left is that China and USDA need to sit down and negotiate an agreement that will set the terms under which we export to China. So we're encouraged. We know there's a lot of work yet to be done, but I think we're a lot closer than we were a year ago.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
No matter where, no matter why, the Veterinary Health Center at Kansas State University is committed to providing quality patient care to animals and exceptional customer service to their owners. From routine checkups to emergency and specialty care, our world-renowned specialists and experienced professionals are here to discover, to teach, and to heal.
Let us know.
How can I help? How can we help?
This segment brought to you by Kansas Corn. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Captain Calvin Howes sailed ships from Cape Cod all over the world. But his legacy comes from a second career as a Montana rancher.
My great-grandfather started the ranch, and he worked very hard back in the 1880s. It was a hard life. And then my grandfather, he started had a bunch of cattle that he had to take care of himself when he was 12 years old, and not much help. And these people worked very hard. And by the time I came along, life was getting quite a bit easier, but we managed to keep busy.
Today, Stephen's son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughters make up the fifth and sixth generations. The first 2,500 head were trailed up from Texas, then introduced Angus genetics several generations later.
The crossbred calves did so well that we just got to crossing everything with Angus bulls, and then keeping the heifer calves. So as time went on, we got the herd to where it's just pretty much straight Angus.
Stephen says the breed helps them reach ranch goals and provide calves that keep repeat buyers coming back.
So we wanted light birth weight, easy calving, and then I also wanted to get ones that had good carcass values, mainly good ribeye area and good marbling, and of course they had to have good overall conformation.
Longevity is also an important trait, with many cows calving into their young teens. Docility rounds out the cattleman's selection criteria.
We like to be able to handle the cattle, sort them either afoot or horseback without them just going crazy. And it's very important, like a bunch of calves that you're getting ready to load onto a truck. You know, if you don't get them all wild and get to running, if they do, if they get to acting up, they're losing weight, and there is some injury too.
The rancher says keeping that calm takes genetics and management.
We don't chase cattle, we herd cattle, and we try to be good to them, because like I've said several times, we love them. They've been good to us, we'll be good to them.
I'm Bob Cervera.
Hello friends, I'm Ernie Rodina.
And I'm Dawn Dawson with the Better Horses Radio Show.
For over 9 years, we've been bringing the Better Horses Radio Show to markets all across the Midwest. We talk about God, lots about horses.
We talk about cows, we talk about horse health, we talk to top trainers, and we even talk about Roy Rogers.
We're having a blast with Better Horses Radio Show and would love to take it to a market near you.
So visit our website at betterhorsesradio.com and let us or your local radio station know you'd like to hear it in your area.
The Better Horses Radio Show is unbelievable.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Hello and welcome to Horsing Around. I'm Dr. Chris Blevins at Kansas State University Veterinary Health Center. Today joined by Dr. Beth Davis. Welcome.
Thank you.
Dr. Davis is a professor here in the equine section and head of the equine section here at Kansas State Veterinary Health Center. Today, I think would be a great aspect and topic to talk about just the horse that is coughing, and maybe even causes of a horse that would cough would be a good place to start, because horses are traveling and there's a lot of horses around potentially coughing, and maybe some issues with that. So what would be some causes of horses to cough?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question, and one that certainly is relevant at this time of year, because we do hear them do that. So I think as horse owners and as horse professionals, we all know that horses are going to cough here and there. So an occasional cough, really, we probably can brush off, not a huge deal. I think where we get concerned is where we have a horse that continues to cough, or perhaps even a horse that isn't quite themselves and has a cough to go along with it. So we often break that cough down into, do you think that it is a result of infectious disease versus non-infectious disease? And so when we talk about things like infectious disease, we might be talking about something like a respiratory infection with a bacteria or perhaps a virus. So things like a fever that might go along with it, which could result in the horse being a little bit not themselves, and maybe they need some treatment. So maybe we need to take a closer look and have a veterinarian take a peek.
Okay. And then as far as, so we kind of talked a little bit about that of infectious, what would be even some, I guess, non-infectious causes of coughing?
Sure, absolutely. So that would be the horse that they kind of seem like themselves. Maybe they're not quite right, but basically doing okay, but you do hear this cough. And sometimes that's going to be with exercise. Sometimes it's not even with exercise. You just see them at rest or out in the pasture by the round bale and they've got some cough. And so when we talk about non-infectious respiratory disease and a cough, we think about things like maybe what we call inflammatory airway disease, where we have some inflammation of the lower airways, or we can even have a horse that has what we call recurrent airway obstruction, or many horse people are familiar with the term of heaves.
Okay.
And often those break down into a little bit of an age-related problem. So we more commonly see that inflammatory airway disease in the young performance horse that's out and working. More commonly see recurrent airway obstruction, or a horse that has heaves, as maybe a mature to even a little bit older type horse.
Those are good points, because I think in some horses that are out there and they're showing them, they're thinking maybe it's heaves. It could be, but the other thing would be, based on those things and getting maybe some further diagnostics, and obviously consult with their veterinarian on a lot of those. What would be some potential, I guess, kind of quickly, what would be some treatments or things that maybe the owner should be thinking about to help with those non-infectious type issues?
Yep. Another really good point. Again, I agree with you. I think that when we've got that horse that has a persistent cough and we're trying to work through that, really good time for us to go ahead and have a veterinarian come out, make sure there's not anything underlying that's infectious, because sometimes that does require things like antibiotics. But if we're sure that they do have non-infectious, just airway inflammation, and maybe it's a young horse with IAD, often working with their veterinarian for things like anti-inflammatories. And those anti-inflammatories might include things like corticosteroid therapy. And we often are going to do that in combination with if there's any sort of trigger in the environment. Because sometimes what happens is they maybe had flu or they had rhinopneumonitis, a little bit of a viral infection, they got over that, now they have some persistent inflammation. And maybe they're staying indoors because of weather conditions, or maybe they live in a pen with a round bale and they've got some dust exposure, and that makes things a little bit worse. So often it's going to be maybe some medications that the veterinarian can prescribe along with some environmental changes. And that's true with our older horse that has heaves as well. I think many of us are familiar with that situation, but trying to minimize dust, try to have really clean hay or even grass pasture as an ideal forage source, and then working with the veterinarian on the optimal medications that that horse should be receiving.
I think that's all great points, and I sure appreciate that, Dr. Davis. And I think that the biggest point to even take home would be consult with your veterinarian if you have any issues with your horse coughing, so you can kind of figure those things out. And again, if you have any other questions, just give us a call here at Kansas State Vet School, and maybe Dr. Davis or one of the other specialists in internal medicine here at the Veterinary Health Center can help you with that. I'm Dr. Chris Blevins with Horsing Around, and we'll see you around.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com. Watch AgAM in Kansas online at agaminkansas.com.